So welcome to my talk, which will be about integrating your website and your iOS app. And before I get to that, let me briefly introduce myself. My name is Oliver Drobnik. Some of you might know me as Coconetics, mostly from Twitter, but maybe from my blog. I tend to write about the things that I learn while I work on client apps. That's my other hat. I'm also developer evangelist for the product layer GmbH, productlayer.com. And this will be part of the reason why I'm holding this talk, but more on that in a minute. I briefly want to do an advertisement. I wrote a book, and this book is on how to use barcode technology with iOS. And my publisher Manning has a promotion running right this moment for all of you attendees. You get 41% off with the promo code CTW MobiCF. So if you make a note of that, go to manning.com. All books are free. No, not free. 41% off. Yeah. If you happen to be on Twitter while watching this talk, if you tweet feedback, pictures, anything about my talk, if you liked it, if you didn't like it, with hashtag Mobiconf, then I will select one person to receive a free copy of this book. Yeah. Okay. I mentioned developer evangelist for product layer GmbH, and our main product is Broadly. And Broadly, I need to briefly explain if you haven't heard about this before, gives customers a way to talk about products. And we have the scenario that we have the same content more or less, but on different platforms. All of this is based on the product layer API, which is a RESTful API. And this feeds what you see in the iPhone app, iPad app, as well as what you see on the website. And of course, we want to have the best possible experience for our users. And that means we have certain integration goals, meaning where the website and the iOS app should come together. The main integration goal for us was to upgrade users from the web to the native experience. Because you can do many things nowadays on websites, responsive and all that, but we prefer if users use the app, because it's my app, I wrote it in a couple of months, and I think it's just better than a website. So how do we do that? First integration technology, Smart App Banner. Second integration goal is that the user, if he's already created a login on the website, can reuse this login in the app. And that's called shared web credentials. Third goal, we want the user to be able to seamlessly switch between devices, whatever is handy or best for the current thing that he tries to do, while retaining the same context. So he shouldn't have to find the same context every time he goes onto a new device. And this is achieved by activity continuation. And lastly, until iOS 9 arrived, when you got a web link for a product on Broadly, it would always open in Safari. And with iOS 9, it's now possible to have universal links, so that if you have your app installed already, it doesn't open the browser, but it opens the app for this product. So about Smart App Banner, something that's been around for a while already. It's been slightly revamped in iOS 9, so let me show you how it looks at the moment. So if you go to a product page in mobile Safari, and you don't have the app installed, you get this banner where if you click on View, you get to the Broadly app. And after you've installed it, you go to the same page. There's now a thinner version of that, that allows you to open exactly this product also in the app. And we're going to look at how is that being implemented. So to implement it, it's very easy. It's no code necessary initially. You just put a meta tag at the top or in the head of your HTML code. Optionally, you can add tracking information for the analytics and the affiliate systems. And then inside the app, you need to handle the URL that you passed to navigate to exactly the same product that the user was on. So the basic implementation is just this meta tag. It's got name Apple iTunes app, and the content is the app ID, and optionally an app argument, but not optional for us because this app argument is the URL of the product users are looking at currently. And to turn on analytics and the affiliate system tracking, additional information can be added to this content tag, namely AT is the affiliate token and PT is the provider token. And just to make the distinction, because it's been confusing to me initially, analytics is what you get if you log into iTunes Connect and then go to analytics. Affiliate, there's a different website, and affiliate is usually used for tracking sales that your website does for another person. Because if these apps are for money, for pay, then you get some affiliate commission. And both of these services also have a campaign token by which you can group these downloads or sales. So to handle the whole thing in the app, there's a delegate method for that on the application delegate. And in this case, I created a method handle URL because we'll need that later on. And all it does is it basically takes the NSURL components, divides them so that I can then navigate in the app to this path, to these parameters. So fairly easy. Make a note, handle URL, we're going to see this in upcoming slides. And that's all you need to do. When the app is opened from the Smart App Banner, the URL that was in the extra data is passed here, and then I'm going to navigate to this location in the app. So next up, shared web credentials. Shared web credentials, just to show how this looks like. You're presenting a login form in the app, and then the user gets a form where all the usernames that he's previously used on the website are presented to him, and he can pick one, or he can decide not now if he doesn't want the app to have the credential for whatever reason. So he clicks on this and then on OK, and that's it for the user experience. In terms of implementation, there are a few more steps involved. First, you need to more or less prove that you own the domain, so that apps can't get to the credentials of other websites. And you do that by creating a so-called site association file. It needs to have a web credential section. Also, the app needs to have in its entitlements the web credentials : your domain entitlement, and these entitlements are used in the provisioning profile and when signing the app to basically lock it down so that you can have a different binary to get these credentials. And then you need to request this login information in the app. And optionally, it could also be that the user gets into the app before he goes to the website. So you can still save the login password after a successful login in the app, so that it can be used in the mobile Safari app. And not just that, because it's saved in the iCloud keychain, the login will then also be available on the other computers of this user or other devices. Yeah? So I go into the app, log in, it gets saved to the iCloud keychain. Next time I go to my Mac, I can log in with the same credentials without having to remember my password or even type it in. I just select it. Safari auto-completion puts it in. So this proof of ownership, how does this look like? The site association file is basically a JSON file. On iOS 8, you need to sign it with an SSL certificate that contains the domain name as the qualified domain, and it needs to be served in that case as PKCS7 MIME content type. That's been a bit tedious and many ways to get that wrong. So Apple decided for iOS 9 you don't need that anymore. You can just put the JSON on the server. And the reason why it's no longer needing the signature, because it can only be served via HTTPS anyway. And the HTTPS connection verifies that it comes from this domain. So for iOS 8 it's basically double certified. Yeah. But since we still want to support iOS 8, and I managed to get the signature right, so that's what I did. And the funny thing was, even during the beta stage, already this worked on iOS 9 for me. And finally, one word of warning: you can't have any redirects or errors when iOS is accessing this file, which it does when you launch the app for the first time, and it makes a request to the server, gets the site association file. No redirects, no errors, because otherwise iOS would ignore it. So how does the site association file look like? Like this. Very simple JSON dictionary with a key web credentials, which is another dictionary, and then you have a key apps, and there's a JSON array of the fully qualified bundle identifier with the team identifier in front. And conceivably, you could have multiple apps there, but basically precisely stating this ID, this ID, this ID, these are the ones that are allowed to have access to the shared web credentials for this domain. There are a couple of validation tools which help with that. I put JSON lint there because this is a JSON file. You might mistype some closing bracket or something, so run it through JSON lint so that you know, okay, my JSON is correct. And then there are a couple of validation tools that allow you to check is everything correct with the signing, with the hosting, and so on. For the entitlements, that's where you do that in Xcode. You can see I already got the three different services, web credentials, app links, and activity continuation. These we will need further on in my talk, but it's always name of the service, column, and then the domain name that you are claiming to be entitled to integrate with. In this case, shared web credentials.broadly.ly. So to request a web credential in the app, it's just a function call where you specify as the first parameter the domain you are requesting for. Second parameter I have a null because you could specify username, then you would only see the username that matches that, but we would want to see all in a list. And then in the completion handler, you get an core foundation array with the credentials. It's somewhat misleading because you either get an empty array or you get an array with exactly one entry. And if something went wrong, you get an error. So in handling this, I just check, is the error null? If yes, I return. And then also I check, is there anything in the return array? And if there's nothing in there, then either there are none, or the user clicked on the not yet. And then with the login, I can just perform a normal login. This is the method to update it. Yeah? As I said, potentially the user enters a login in your app, and to make it available for Safari, this is how you do it. You pass in username and password, and if an error occurs, well, there's nothing really you can do about it. An error would occur if you don't have the correct entitlements. And you can see all these implementations in the product layer SDK, which is on GitHub, and there in the ply login controller.m, I use both methods. And I put it in the public SDK, although only I possess the key to actually use it in an app. But any other app that would use this SDK, it would just fail with an error and then be ignored. Next up, activity continuation. It's also called handoff. Activity continuation is a bit, that's the correct term. In colloquial use, it's often been referred to as handoff. And how does this look like? Imagine, for example, you are browsing on the project website looking at a specific product, and then you feel, actually, it would be nicer to view this on my phone. So you do a handoff web to app, and then you're on the phone and view exactly the same product. Or you say, no, actually, I've got this iPad, which is even nicer. Also, the app is installed there. So I go to the iPad, and I'm still viewing the same product. And then there's yet another iPhone that doesn't have Prodigy installed. So I do a app to web. So I end up in mobile Safari there. And of course, I can go back to my Mac if I like, and I can do this all day long. And that's the idea of activity continuation, that the user keeps his context but moves to the device that's most suitable for the task. So in terms of implementation, I need the activity continuation section in the association file. I need activity continuation, your domain, in the entitlements. We've seen that before. You need to add supported custom activity types to the info plist and handle the incoming activity in the app delegate. And also you need to track your user activities. That is, anytime the user does something that can be called, now he is viewing a product, searching for a product, then that's an activity you need to track and tell iOS that's what he's currently doing, so that on a different device it can show up on the lock screen, bottom left. There's the small icon that you can pull up and then hand it off to the app there. Site association file looks like this, quite similar to what we've seen before. In this case, it just says activity continuation, and you again have this apps array with the bundle identifiers of your apps. In the info plist, the supported activity types, usually you take the bundle identifier and then append a name for the activity. In this case, I've defined product, search, home, profile. These are different kinds of activities that the user can do. And to handle the incoming activity continuation, we again turn to the application delegate, which has a method continue activity. And in our case, because every activity that we track, you will see that on the next slide, has this web page URL, which is the URL where the user can see exactly what he's viewing in the app right now. Because we get this URL, we are already done, because if you remember, I have this underscore handle URL method, which then navigates in the Prodigy app to the right place. If there were some more complicated things to hand over, I could also use this restoration handler and then restore my view hierarchy with that. But in our case, since one app or website doesn't need anything else to hand over than the URL, I don't need that. I just handle the URL. So in terms of tracking user activity, this is from the view controller where you view an individual product. Yeah? Once this appears, I create an activity, and at the top half of this code basically is to put together from the barcode, the GTIN of the product, and our domain, the URL. And the second part then creates an activity with this custom type product layer product, sets the web page URL, sets a title, and at the end it makes it current. And this tells iOS, the user is exactly doing this right now. This is broadcast via Bluetooth to the other devices of the user, and then you can basically take over this activity on the other device. When the user activity ends, in this case, I just invalidate the activity and set it to nil. This causes then this handoff icon to disappear. So if you have two devices next to each other, and on one you go into the product, and the other one is showing the lock screen, you see the icon appear for handoff as soon as you open the product page, and if you dismiss the product page, the icon disappears. Because handoff is only possible while the activity is active, is current. Next up, universal links. To show how these look like, for example, here's an email that I've received on my iPhone where somebody sent me an amazing product, a link to that, and before universal links, if I clicked on that, I would end up in Safari. Or, for example, this could be a tweet where somebody tweets this amazing new Apple Watch. Look at that. Now, the app is installed in this case, so clicking on this link doesn't open Mobile Safari, but opens the Broadly app and shows precisely the same product that this URL refers to. And there's yet another nifty thing at the top left. You see there's a small link back. So that's quite convenient if you have any app that opens any URL on your website. You have the native app installed, this opens there, and via this link back you get back to, say, Twitter or email or what else. That's new in iOS 9. Anytime something does open URL, you get this backlink. How is this implemented? Well, again, is a section that we add to the site association file, namely app links. We need the entitlement. You see a pattern here. Always the site association file, always the entitlement. Number 3, we handle the activity continuation, and we already done that because continuing an activity is the same as opening this universal link. The same application delegate method is being called. And this is how the app site association file looks like. In this case, it needs to be a bit more complicated. You have the app links key apps. Currently, there's an empty array because it's not limited to specific apps. In this case, but in the details, you specify which parts of your website can be opened by which apps. In this case, I only have one app, product layer Broadly, and the paths are all asterisk. But conceivably, if you had multiple apps that are more or less representing different parts of your website, you could restrict the paths to specific app IDs. And that's how it's handled. We've seen that before. It's the same for activity continuation and universal links. The only difference is you get a different type ID as a property of the user activity, but we don't care about this one because all information we need we get from the web page URL property, and this is handled by _handle URL. That's the main goals that I set out in the beginning. I have a bonus section for you. New in iOS 9, there is integration with the search API. So how does this look like? Here we have somebody is searching for a few characters, and here we have a search result. And this search result is an activity that the user did earlier, where I set a property that it can be indexed to yes. That's all it takes. Then it shows up here. And the search API allows you to include activities, yeah, in this search, as well as other items. Yeah. So, for example, I could index the whole timeline of the user and add it to the search index. We've decided to only add the activities because those are the products that the user really went in and looked at, so that this search here isn't spammed, but only shows you things that you might remember. Yeah, I went into this suite here, the name was something like, and then it shows exactly this, and you get back to the product by tapping on that. You can also add attributes to this either activity or the item that you're indexing, namely, for example, a thumbnail. Yeah, I'm showing here a small product image on the left side, and you can specify additional text. Yeah, in this case, I don't know if you can see it, it's the category food sweets and the name of the manufacturer. You can index select content that the user might search for, which is useful. Yeah, if the example that was given was the Airbnb app. Yeah, if you remember, I've got a reservation in a certain city, and you start searching for the name of the city, then the Airbnb app could show you your reservation. That makes sense. That's something that the user might search for. What you shouldn't do is put everything in there, hoping that this will sort of boost your traffic on your website or something. Because one thing you can do is activities also have a property to be included in the public index. And that's really awesome if you have activities that many users do that have URLs. Then these URLs will also show up for other users who don't have the app installed in the Safari web results and in the Spotlight search results. But in order to be included there, you need to have tens or hundreds of thousands of users who click on certain activities, and if Apple sees the same activity identified by a hash, so that's all private, if it sees the same hash multiple times, then this URL will also be recommended to other users. And again, this is handled via the activity continuation path. Yeah? Regardless whether it comes, this entry in the Spotlight, if it comes from an activity or if it comes from something I added to the index myself, it's handled the same way in the app, via activity continuation, and the URL is passed and a few other things. So it's relatively easy to implement that. Now, a word of warning, yeah, you should only index useful information. Yeah? I found on Twitter a negative example. This is the Expedia app, and somebody tweeted then, this is why we can't have nice things, because in this case you can add keywords to the items you add to the index, and in this case Expedia added app, so if you search for app you would get lots of non-relevant search results. This is not the experience that you want your users to have. Yeah? That's why we chose only to add the items to the index that the user actively interacted with. So, in summary, we've implemented a smart app banner which allows users to find our app on the App Store, install it, and if you want to go from the website into the app, you can do that via the open button. We have implemented shared web credentials, so users can reuse their login password from Safari in the app and vice versa. We've implemented activity continuation so that the user moves between different apps and Safari and devices. So whatever device is the best for the current situation, he always has his context. And we implemented universal links so that our app is the place to show a URL as opposed to mobile Safari if it's installed. And that's the end of my talk. Thanks for watching. Do we have any questions? There's one.
Hi, thank you for the talk. So we've done the universal link thing for items that our user has favorited, either on the site or on the app. The problem is that if we index them more than once, that they'll show up more than once in the Spotlight results.
Yeah, there is a situation that potentially you could index an item or a URL because the user interacted with it, you had an activity, and the activity is included, and also that you add it additionally via Core Spotlight. Now the trick here is there is a related identifier property on the user activity, which you need to set to the identifier of the Core Spotlight item. That's caveat number one. Caveat number two, the Core Spotlight item needs to exist before you do that. Because if you do that, say related identifier would just be your URL, which is not a bad identifier because usually that's unique. But if you set it on the activity before having added it to via Core Spotlight, then nothing shows up. So in your case, you haven't set the related identifier, so that's why both the item as well as the activity show up.
Gotcha. Thank you very much.